Slow robot, okay. So it's been a while since I've done a video. And what do I want to do? What I want to do today is start a new series of videos, hopefully a new series of videos where I do a deep dive into the songs that I've done in the past. Um, just to kind of go through all of the various decisions and both musical and production wise to you know, from start to finish over the course of a song. And I guess the what I'm going for is just to kind of show how um, we don't need to overthink things in what we do. Really, the idea is that you just go with what sounds good to you and move on. You don't have to really overthink too much about like the technical aspects usually. Um, and really that's it. I just want to go through the process, show what I did when and where, and I want to call this series What Have I Done? Because when I open these sessions, these old sessions of mine, I usually am like disgusted by what I'm seeing because there's just so much like layers of like EQ, like four EQs on the same track or whatever, and like I'm doing all this, processing that if anybody else opened this session, they would be horrified. And really, the idea is that it's okay to do that. Um, so I'm gonna walk through this song. This is the first song off my new album that came out yesterday. The album is called Finally Here, and it's finally here. And the first song off that album is a song called The Leopards Grift. Um, and that's where we're gonna get started. Now, one thing to note right off the bat, this is a very political album. It is about the times we live in today, the craziness of the world that we live in, and I'm a very anti MAGA person. I'm a very anti Trump person. Fuck ICE, all that stuff. So if that bothers you, then, you know, move on to another video, please. But that said, again, this whole album is very political, and this song is probably the most political in terms of just kind of some of the things that I've done on it. Um, what am I doing here? All right, cancel that. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna get started and show you kind of. First, we're gonna go into the song itself. We'll go through, and I expect each one of these is gonna take multiple videos, or if I do it over, do a longer video, I may cut it up into smaller pieces. It's all gonna be stream of conscious because I don't have the time to edit all the stuff like all the fancy YouTubers out there. Um, and I don't aspire to that anyway. I'm just doing this for fun. But yeah, so I'm going to go through the song itself first, and then we will go into the production and mix and all that stuff a little bit later on. So, Leopard's Grift, what is this song? This song is a song about basically, uh, if you've heard the phrase, the leopards are eating your face, that's what kind of this song is about. The chorus is very much kind of about that specifically. Um, and so there's a couple of things that I wanted to do that kind of sparked this song in the first place. Like I'm a big fan of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. They have a album or a song. I think it's called Butterfly something. They have so many songs. I can't keep them straight. But what they did on that song is they had this MIDI part, and they did this like it's like a visual thing that they did on this MIDI part, and they incorporated that into the song, and it's I don't know, that inspired me to do something similar on this song. So that's where the that's one of the two kind of interesting to me features of this song. Excuse me. Is that I did something similar here, and where I did that is in this. called Grift Pluck Synth. That's the name of the track I came up with here. And if you look into this track, you will see this a little bigger. You might be able to make it out, but this says a word here. So I took this, I figured out a, a key that I liked, and then I basically put in this word, and it says MAGA grifter. So that's obviously very political, right? So this is just kind of like a fun little thing that I did in there, and this sounds okay. This I can't do that. So let me make sure that I solo this and this. And so this is what this sounds like. And it sounds very clownish, which I think fits what the administration is doing. So this is what it sounds like. So it sounds very goofy and silly. And that's kind of in the background of this part. But the other kind of fun feature I think of this section is that I took the time signature and I made it into that whole 8647 thing. Get rid of the president. Eight the first when it comes in full. It's in 8/4, then it's in 6/4, then it's in 4/4, then it's in 7/4, and then I do that a couple times, and then it comes back out into like a few measures of 7/4, like 3 measures of 7/4 before it goes into the kind of the song proper, where it just goes into 4/4 after that. So that whole thing sounds like this. Like there's a 4-bar intro, and then it goes into this 8647 time signature thing, and that's why you got all these like time signature changes up here. So this is what the intro sounds like. It gets a little weird sounding here. That's just a side effect of how I had to route this for the video. It doesn't sound like that on the album. But anyway, you get the idea. And the reason that I had to do, or I didn't have to, but the reason I did these additional 7/4 bars here is really, that's fun, is because it just felt better to go through um, like a couple of iterations. It kind of builds a little bit of extra energy before it goes into the verse. So again, you can just kind of hear it goes into the 3/7/4s and then into the verse. And then it's into the verse from there. So it's that was the first that's where the whole song started off, and then from there I went into this just kind of like driving, this really driving, bass synth driven sort of part for the verse, and I like it has a kind of a cool groove to it, nice solid groove to it. So that's like this. And this is what the bass sounds like. So it's very kind of 80s kind of synth sound, bass synth sound, but I think it suits the track. And if you listen to the bass and the drums together, you can hear it gets it sounds cool. So, and you'll notice that it's I've actually got three kits here. I've got a looks like a uh, so this is just an Ableton kit here, Altered Kit 3. I have an Addictive Drums kit. I do this a lot in my songs where I'll kind of layer multiple drums. You know, sometimes it probably sounds a little messier than it needs to, but sometimes it sounds cool. I think it sounds pretty cool here. And they're all playing, you know, slightly different things. And I think I actually, yeah, you can see I have the panning set up differently here. This one's on the left, this one's on the right. So this is another Ableton kit. And then I've got my Addictive Drums kit. Um, and this is uh, a preset that I came up with for Addictive Drums 2 like a long time ago. This is, you know, I just kind of love the sound of this. So if we go in here, you can just kind of just sounds really beefy, which is why it's called Cleaner Beef. And I got, of course, I have a little bit of extra processing on there, but we can get into the processing later. But again, if you listen to the drums just alone, you can hear the three kits kind of, they don't sound like they're necessarily apart, but they also do. So I'm just going to loop this for a second here. So let's do this guy. So now you hear just this kit. Very simple beat. And if we do this one, similar but not identical. And then this guy. This is actually, I think, doing a little bit of a polymeter kind of thing. Yeah, doing a little bit of a polymeter thing. I'd like to do that a lot too. That's why I like to do these multiple kind of kit things, because it's just, to me, it adds a little depth. And then also I have ADHD, so it works well for me for that. But yeah, I think that sounds really cool, you know, between the bass and the drums on that part. The other thing that I did on these drums here, so I pulled in so I mentioned King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard was an inspiration for this approach on the song. Actually, one of the, a couple, they have a few really good songs, like really killer grooves on their KGLW albums, and I pulled in a couple of those into the session, and then I took the groove and I put them into here. So Static Electricity is one of the songs that has a similar kind of groove to what I did here. So if you look at these, you can see I used these King Gizzard, this Enfuse. I can't remember which the name of the song that's from, but that's in there. Let's see what this one has. Yeah, these ones are all Enfuse. I think there's other part uses the Static Electricity somewhere in here. Yeah, this one. So this in the chorus, I use the Static Electricity groove. Just, you know, I put these. This is something I usually don't like to do is just, you know, click in the drum hits and then just, you know, have to manually adjust everything. Like I hate having to do that. So what I do a lot of time is like I'll play around with like different ways of kind of humanizing things. I don't like using, you know, timing humanizers because it's really just randomizing stuff. I don't usually like to do that. I'll do it a little bit like here. Sometimes I'll do it like 10% just to give it a little bit of movement, but off of the grid. But I generally like to have a more human, like real human kind of feel to it. So like I will either, you know, play it via hand because I'm not a drummer, obviously. But just so you get that real, like an actual feeling of a real groove there. But recently I've been trying to do other stuff like this where I'm just like, I do just put it in here and then I find other ways to kind of bring, humanity into it a little bit more. Um, One of the other things I did here, so if you see on, I think all of these drum kits, you can see I've got a couple of velocities here. Um, Looks like this one's bypassed, but I think that's just getting all of its humanity, for lack of a better term, from the groove. But these other ones with where I have the velocity on, so what I'm doing here is I think I have, did I do it on this one? This is, see, the drive here is being controlled by LFOs. So I did something similar to, if anybody's used the XO, um, uh, XO, yeah, it's called XO, the XLN Audio XO drums plugin. They have this, I can show you. Grab my instruments and just do one of these real quick just to show you what I'm kind of replicating something that comes in with this plugin. So if you come to this accentuator on this plugin, you see that you can add, this is a velocity. It basically gives you a real easy way to kind of manipulate the velocity of the pattern of each step of the pattern. So at every half step, you know, half step, it's going to be high and then low, high, low. And then if you want to get a little more nuance on the quarter notes, you can dial that in every sixth note, that kind of thing. And so I'm doing a similar thing here that this is doing, but I put it into the actual the drum kits here. So let me get rid of where did I put it? Never know where these things go. Oh, I'm just gonna undo it. Undo insert device. Perfect. All right, cool. So yeah, so I'm doing a similar thing with these. You see, I've got two of them, so I'm doing. Each one is doing kind of a different length or a pattern. So like this one looks like it's probably doing like an eighth note, and this like would be doing like maybe a half. It looks like. Um, so if I come over here, you can see, yeah, quarter note or no, two and then a quarter rate. So and it's really just doing the same thing. I've got a little bit of jitter in these and smoothing just to give a little bit of extra randomness to the velocity changes, so it's not every single fourth quarter note is always at 110, for example. It might be 110 and then 112 and then 109, that kind of thing. So it just gives a little bit of extra randomness there with the jitter and the smoothing. um, and that's what I'm doing for I think both of these. Yeah, I got those there. um, I'm not really sure what I'm doing with this rhythmic steps thing here. Let's see if I can figure that out. Got a device on. Is that the? Oh, you know what? I bet this is. I have a section in here where it kind of does like a little fill. Let's see if that's this. I don't know. Show automation. See what that goes. Oh, I'm already on it. You know what? I probably just left it off. At some point, I did something and I said, okay, well, I don't really want that. So I just left that off. So that's why that's there. So we can ignore that. But yeah, so that's the drums for, kind of some of the approaches that I did for the drums. Again, like I don't generally like doing the humanization um, thing with the timing. I think that's a bad idea because everybody's like, "Oh, human timing is human timing is not random." and neither is the velocity. Like when you listen to a drummer, they're getting a little more, behind the time and then a little ahead of the time, but they're not like randomly ahead and then randomly behind, every single hit like that. That's not how a real drummer plays or sounds. And I know that's probably nitpicking for a lot of people, but I can, for me, I feel like I can hear it, and maybe it's just a feeling, I don't know, but for me, it feels like it feels better when it's, played in a, more natural way. So I'm just trying to find ways to accomplish that, and that's what the grooves are for. So the timing of these grooves is important for that purpose, because that's helping more with the timing than the velocity. So the velocity is really being handled, like you can see the velocity of these is all down to 0. The timing is up above 50% in all cases, and then you know a little bit of randomness added to that. But the velocity is handled by really by these velocity tools and the LFOs that we have over here for those. So I thought that was a kind of a fun thing. I did that on a couple songs on this album, and I think it worked out pretty well. I think it did it a little differently on each one, but as we get through these other songs, you'll probably see that. So, all right, so let's take a listen to the verse and just see what else we got going on here. So you can hear this kind of descending synth part kind of in the background, but I really like what this did to bring some just extra, I don't know, it feels like it's a little more, it brings a little more tension to the song. And then I don't need to go into the vocals too much. You can hear all that, but let's see what this sort of Glock keys. All right, see what this is doing. So you can hear that's really just adding a little bit of extra interest. You almost don't even hear it when you're listening to the track to the part, but um, you know, over the course of a song, you want to kind of build up, build something, a part that you're repeating multiple times over the course of the song. You want it to get more interesting and more full over the course of the song, and that's kind of what I do in pretty much every part of every song. Like it'll start out the first time you go through it, it's almost always the most bare bones you'll hear it, and then as the song progresses, there's going to be a little bit more going on every time. So again, it's just adding that little extra bit in the second half of the verses here. And then I also have that some of both of these synths happening in the last chorus here, but we'll get to that in a minute. The chorus itself. So this is I love this part. So let's take a listen to that real quick. So, couple of things. The first thing is really this the guitar is kind of the standout part here. I mean, the vocal is obviously very important too, but this guitar is kind of the foundation of the chorus, and I just love I love the sound of it. It sounds so cool to me. So let's do. All right. So you can hear it's this nice beefy but strange sounding guitar, and what is happening there is a couple of things. So I do most of my guitar, I will record DI and then use a amp sim for, um, and that is what is happening here. So I'm going to get into a little bit of the production just on the guitar side, just because I think it's kind of important to how I think about the approach for the guitar. And so the first thing I'm doing here is when I do record DI into the like a plugin for amp sim, I'm really thinking of it as a um, you know, as if I'm playing through a pedal board. So you'll notice that like on most of the tracks in the song, you can see, well, let's go for something with audio track. I can find one that's so like most of the audio tracks are going to have this pre 73 and EQ 73. These are excellent mono plugins, by the way. Um, but I have these on almost all of the um, audio tracks in the song in all of my sessions because it's just kind of acting as a preamp sort of section to uh, to the track, and it's imparting its characteristics. And I do a little bit of work on the EQ, and I treat that as again as like I have a preamp here it is a 73 clone, and I don't really use the EQ on that, just because I like to have it, kind of set at, parity going in, and then I do all my processing beyond that in the system. But it's here so that I can do that kind of uh, pre-processing, if you will, on these tracks. So anyway, going back to the guitar, how that factors in. Um, Again, I'm thinking signal path like a guitarist would. I'm thinking about, um, you know, am I usually when I do a guitar, I'm gonna be putting a compressor on it before it goes into any of the actual amp modeling. So if I have a pedal board, I'm gonna have my compressor as usually the first thing in the chain. So that's why I have this glue compressor here. Then I put it in through the preamp, and then I go through the guitar stuff over here. So you can see I have an archetype Tim Henson and a Guitar Rig 7, and we'll go into that in a second. But it goes through. That's kind of the thought process there. So I've got a glue compressor on here. I just love the sound of the glue compressor. It's fantastic. I put it at a 30 millisecond, very aggressive ratio. Usually I'll have it dry wet all the way up, and then let's see how much actual compression I'm getting here. Yeah, I mean, you can see it's a very aggressive compression. It's getting 10 dB of compression um, on this guitar. And, that's just, if you use a guitar compressor, they can be very aggressive um, compressors. So I'm just replicating that here um, before it gets into the rest of this stuff. So you can see I've got my little tuner here, and then we'll get into the actual what's going on in the guitar itself, or the guitar amp processing itself. So first thing I'm actually going to hold off on the Tim Henson piece for now, but we're going to go into in fact, I'm going to actually bypass that, and then we're going to go into the actual guitar rig stuff. So you can see this is one of my favorite amp sims. It doesn't sound quite as great as the archetype, but I just love it. It still sounds fantastic, and I just love the different options that you get, the different all the different things you can do with it. There's so many like little plugins in here, and it's basically its own little you know um, matrix of crap you can throw together. So you can see I have a fuzz on it. I've got it going into an amp, and in between the amp and the cabinet. So this is the cabinet for the amp. and then this is the amp itself. You can see I put a phaser in between that, so that's kind of a fun little thing I did. And then at the end, I've got this reverb um, on the back end of the amp. So again, I just bypassed this the Tim Henson piece here, and this is only doing one thing, but I bypassed it for a reason because I just want to show you what this sounds like with just the amp by itself. Here's what the guitar sounds like. So it sounds beefy and thick, but it's not really, even though I've got a fuzz on it, it's not super aggressive. Like, I'm not doing this, um, it's a very mild fuzz that I'm adding to it, and it's just to kind of beef it up a little bit. Um, this is a thing that I think a lot of, guitarists have a tendency, like they think that they need to over saturate everything. They need, when they plug in their distortion pedal, they just crank everything to 10, and then it sounds huge, sort of, but not really, because it really does eliminate like so much of the dynamics of the part. And so, um, being a little bit pulled back in terms of the distortions that you're adding and all the settings that you're using for your guitar is a very powerful thing to learn, um, because like again, it's, you can lose a lot by overdoing it. Sure, you may feel like, oh, this is huge sounding, but you're actually losing so much dynamics a lot of times if you're over distorting things, that it doesn't let the song breathe anymore. It doesn't let the part breathe anymore, and it just kind of cuts that the effectiveness of that part if you're over distorting. So that's all that's doing, is just kind of bringing that little bit of extra, uh, a little bit of extra grit, but kind of some body to it. And then the archetype Tim Henson. So what this is doing, I've got the multi-voicer in here, which this is doing that. This is why it sounds so interesting, this guitar part. So again, on its own, without the multi-voicer on, this is what it sounds like. Just sounds like a normal guitar with a little bit of fuzz on it. But if you put this on, you get this really full, um, interesting chord. Basically, the lead part becomes a bunch of chords, and I just think that sounds amazing, and it really is what does it for me in this chorus. And really, all it's doing is, I've got it set to um, the C sharp minor, um, and then it doesn't even have a selected chord. I don't even know what that's doing, but you can see, I've got a plus a 12th, a plus 5th, plus 10th, and a plus 12th over here, and then they're just panned a little bit. And really, that's that. It's just, this is just adding that beef to the track that I just think it's makes this part so effective. And then you can hear in the bass synth is doing that, still doing that 80s thing. Pretty much through the whole song. And I just think it sounds like really effective there. So yeah, so that's the chorus. Now down here it goes back into that 8647 part. It goes back into that MAGA grifter part that's in multiple time signatures, and this is a little bit stripped back version of it. Oh, actually, before I get to that, the other thing I wanted to mention about this chorus, I just think this is a really cool um, cut over back to the verse. It just sounds really, it just worked. I don't know. I didn't do anything really, and I just think it sounds really effective. I think it's the groove. I think going from one to the other, it just has this cool like bop boom bop boom bop bop boom bop like that. I just really like how the groove transitions there. I think that's a cool thing. Anyway, back to the this second uh, part here. So this bridge is just a repeat, a reprise, reprieve, whatever, of the intro, and it's a little stripped back version of it. So you can hear how that transitions here. So it comes out of the chorus. You can hear there's not any guitar yet, and it's just doing this clowny synth again. And then the guitar comes in. And then we're back into the final chorus of the song, which I think is double the length of the rest of the choruses. Yeah, so this chorus, yeah, double the length. And you know, this first half of this is the same as the first two, but then we get back to this the idea of adding a layer to just fill it out, so it's kind of building toward the end. And that's what I did here with these additional keys. So if you listen, you can hear this in the background. And this in the background. So they're just adding a little bit of extra interest into that last section just to build it up that for that final run through the end of the song. And, you know, that's just something to keep in mind with your own productions. If you're, you know, repeating a section multiple times, it is more interesting if it evolve. It doesn't have to necessarily get louder over time or more complex or add stuff. You can take away stuff too. Just changing things up to keep things interesting. You know, an example of taking away is that, you know, going back to this second bridge, we actually take out some of the guitar there, where we have that in the intro of the song here. So, you know, just making sure that your song is evolving over the course of the track is really kind of what is kind of the most important thing when you're just talking about the energy of the song. So, yeah, I mean that's pretty much it for the music itself. I think next time I will go into a little bit of the production here. Um, we've got a lot going on, and again, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, why would I, you know, if I looked at this and opened it up and saw all these, you know, crazy, I've got EQ over here, I've got EQ over here, I've got, you know, compressor here, I've got a compressor, I think I got a compressor over here, I got a compressor over here. Why am I doing all this? Like, I'm doing it all because it sounds good to me. And you know, this is what this series is going to be about. Is like, well, why did I do that? And then convincing myself that it was okay, because the end result sounds good. Then you know, then the song is where it needs to be, right? Like you don't have to overthink it too much. Um, of course, there are some technical things you need to be aware of, like, you know, making sure things sum to mono in a good way. But that's, you know, as long as you're mindful of that kind of stuff, you can, you know, just do what sounds good. And yeah. So anyway, that's the song. Um, if you want to check it out, again, it's on my new album, Finally Here, which came out yesterday. Um, and it's on all streaming platforms. And yeah, that's it. Take care, and I will talk to you guys soon.